Preth House stood on a hill, a dark, brooding house. Twisted trees clawed at its walls. Like skeletal fingers they were. Everyone knew the stories, whispers of tragedy, tales of horror. Preth House held secrets, dark and terrible secrets. No one dared to go near, not in the daylight, certainly not at night. The house watched. It waited. Some houses are born bad. Preth House was one of them. The Everleigh family once lived there. Rich and respected they were, until tragedy struck. Eliza Everleigh, the youngest daughter, died mysteriously. Found dead in her room. No explanation. Some whispered of poison, others of a family curse. The truth remained buried, like Eliza herself. The remaining Everleighs abandoned the house, fled from the grief and the fear. They left everything behind. Years passed. Preth House stood empty, decaying, but not silent. People claimed to hear things, screams in the night, the mournful strains of a piano, laughter cold and cruel. The villagers whispered. They spoke of Eliza's restless spirit, trapped within those walls, seeking solace or perhaps revenge. No one dared to investigate. Fear had a firm grip on the village. Preth House was best left undisturbed. Then came Thomas. A young man new to the village. He scoffed at the stories, dismissed them as mere superstition. He would prove them wrong. He would spend a night in Preth House, alone, and he would come out unscathed. Foolish boy. He didn't know the true meaning of fear. He would soon learn. Preth House awaited its new victim. As twilight fell, Thomas entered Preth House. The air inside was heavy, laden with dust and the scent of decay, and something else, something sinister. He walked through the darkened rooms, each one echoing with emptiness. A grand piano sat in the parlour, its keys covered in cobwebs. He stopped before a portrait. The same young woman from the stories, Eliza Everleigh. Her eyes seemed to follow him, and then he heard it, a faint scratching sound, coming from inside the portrait. The scratching grew louder, more insistent. Thomas watched in horror as the portrait began to change. Eliza's eyes flickered. Her lips curled into a cruel smile. Suddenly a hand shot out from the canvas. Long, pale fingers, tipped with sharp nails, reached for him. He felt a cold, icy touch on his arm. He stumbled back, knocking over a vase. It shattered on the floor, the sound echoing through the silent house. He ran. He had to get out. He raced through the corridors, his heart pounding in his chest. Each room seemed to hold a new terror. Shadows danced at the edge of his vision. Whispers followed him. He fumbled for the doorknob. It wouldn't turn. He was trapped. He could feel Eliza's presence closing in on him, her cold breath on his neck. With a surge of adrenaline, he threw his weight against the door. It burst open and he tumbled out into the night. He didn't stop running until he reached the village. He burst into the tavern, gasping for breath. His words tumbled out in a torrent of fear and disbelief. The villagers listened, some with skepticism, others with a chilling recognition. Thomas had seen what they had always feared. Eliza was real. He had escaped Preth House with his life. But he would never escape the memory of that night, the chilling touch of Eliza's hand, the sound of her laughter echoing in his ears. Preth House still stands on that hill, a constant reminder of the tragedy that unfolded within its walls. The villagers avoid it. Their whispers are filled with fear and respect. Thomas's story serves as a warning. Preth House is not to be trifled with. Its secrets are not meant to be unearthed. And Eliza still walks its halls, waiting, watching. Some stories don't have happy endings. This is one of them.